What up, y'all? It's your hometown hero, the real Adam Coleman. Y'all know what it is, man. True Idea Apologetics, where we emphasize you can't build a strong community on a foundation of weak ideas. And so we about to chop it up with my peoples. Y'all already know these cats, man. Y'all already know what it is when it comes to BK Apologist and MJ Jackson. But, for those two people on the planet Earth who don't know, I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves as we get cracking. And while, make sure y'all share this, hit that like button. I'm going to be sharing it. Let's get this party started. What's up with BK Apologist? Why don't you go first, man?
What's good with you, bro? What's going on? What's going on, everybody? I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to just hanging out. It's been a minute, me and Adam being in the same platform.
Well, I had to question your status here in the UA, man. I had to question you a little bit
now
because I googled your name and I saw that you came up on the Eye of Horus or whatever, or the All-Seeing Eye, and I didn't know like what you was on, man.
You mean the thumbnail that you put me on? That thing, really? Funny guy.
I didn't know what you was on, bro. I was like, man, this cat on some.
I was on your thumbnail that you put me in. That's what I was on. Funny.
Oh man, that's cool. You doing all right though, bro?
I am chilling, man. I'm just so happy to be with you guys, and it's been a while. Me and you, we've been exacting violence on the kindness community for a while, and we have a fellow shooter in the building.
Absolutely.
That does excellent work. So this is gonna be a good time.
Right. MJ Jackson, the Southern Assassin. What's happening, bro?
What's going on, Mr. Coleman? BK Apologist. Just glad to be on the platform. It hasn't been as long as BK, but yeah, glad to be back, man. Every time we hit it off, man, it usually lasts for a little bit over an hour. So we'll see what happened tonight.
Well, yeah. a lot of bit over an hour.
Hey, last time when we went in on Browder, that was almost 3 hours.
Oh, it
wow! You guys did 3 hours on Browder? Wow!
Almost.
Yeah, that was tough. Yeah, we
it was good though.
It was good stuff. So, man, I tell you what, man, we got a real special topic tonight. I feel like because as people who watch this channel and watch you guys' channel, by the way, I would definitely recommend that if you haven't already, subscribe to BK Apologist channel, subscribe to Urban Christian Institute with MJ Jackson for sure. Got a lot of dope content. But as y'all know what it is, man. As we talk about all the time, we're constantly hearing this claim that Christianity is the so-called white man's religion, and just the more and more we dig, man, it's just funny how these skeletons come out of the closet from some of these people who are making those claims. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight, particularly in regard to Kemecticism. I'm not going to say too much about it because that's really you guys are going to get in depth. But essentially, I mean, y'all been doing some real detective work, man. Y'all are like Sherlock and Holmes out here, man. You know what I mean? Or Sherlock and Holmes. Sherlock and what's his right hand man? Watson. There you go. Said Sherlock and Holmes. Sherlock and Watson. Just really do some real detective work. So for people who don't understand or don't know what Kemecticism is, I guess we could briefly describe it as being a worldview that somebody has structured around Egyptian, which, another word for Kemet, referring to the same geographical place, but Egyptian heritage, history, philosophy, and in many cases, spirituality. So that's what you're talking about when you're dealing with Kemecticism, or we talk about Kemetics. And so, typically they're going to be the folks who are saying things like Christianity was based on Horus and stuff like that. That kind of flows from that, and a bunch of other things that we can get into. But before we go there, I want to acknowledge everybody in the chat. Shout out to all my peoples in the chat. We are broadcasting live on YouTube and on Facebook, and the numbers is up, man. Like, Cats is really in here. I think people are really excited to talk about this, and actually I am too. I'm really a spectator. Like, I mean, BK, when you told me about what you guys have been doing, I was like, yo, don't even tell me anymore. I just kind of want to be a spectator when y'all present it so I can, have all the oohs and ahs along with everybody else. So I'm really excited to dig into this. But before we go in, man, is there anything that y'all want to say kind of by way of preliminary, or y'all want to just dive in?
MJ?
Well, I mean, this is violence tonight.
Okay.
When isn't it?
All right.
The gloves are off, and Brackle Knuckles brass knuckles.
Brackle Knuckles. Those two, whatever they are.
Straight kill shots tonight.
Straight kill shots, headshots, 100 points, things like I mean, but it is what it is. You said it
Call of Duty
yourself.
player right there.
We well, you know, my nephew and brother was coming up behind me doing this finishing move, so it's, you know,
Okay.
but I mean, you said it yourself. You can't, you know, build a community on bad ideas,
Right.
and you know, we just exposing the lies and really just taking a look at where this stuff come from, and the jig is up.
The jig is up.
That
It's
indeed.
up.
And you know, it's very apropos that we're doing this on your platform, Adam, because this recent trajectory that me and MJ have been going through it's basically your fault. I just want you to know that. It really is your fault. And I'm going to explain why.
Fault.
It's your fault.
Okay.
This is why. This is why.
I'm sure you have a slide for this and everything. And
I don't have a slide for this, but I should have. But you know, because you know, sometimes you're a little messy on my channel, so I'm going to return the favor. I'm going to be a little messy on yours. All right. Right. You had a very interesting discourse with a one Shaka Atmos.
I did. Okay.
And
I did.
And the dialogue was based on you guys trying to narrow down a particular topic in which to debate on. And you know, and you was very open to various topics, you know, like anything that you wrote on the chapter in the UA book. Shout out to the UA book if you haven't get that book. And you know, but you wanted something that both people were invested in, right? The term that you used was skin in the game, which I don't know if I think it flew over people's heads when you said that. I don't know why.
Right.
But
I don't know what that's about, you know, but yeah.
But then, you know, various things were put on the table. And one of the things was the whole Jesus and Horus discussion. And the reason why, you know, you gave for not wanting to do it is one, it's been done a billion times.
A billion times.
Bro. Billion times. Right. And it's not something he subscribes to.
Right.
So that again, quote unquote, there's nothing. He doesn't lose anything in this debate,
right?
But for some reason, he took that and ran with this idea that you was running from this debate about Horus and Jesus, right? And you know, for the record, Mr. Coleman was not running from that topic.
For what? Right?
Nobody in UA runs from that because it's been debunked. So,
a billion times, right?
A billion times. But then I was thinking, you know what? You know, I wouldn't be a good apologist if I didn't have my own debunking of Horus video.
Oh, okay.
Just have it in the chamber so that when it does come up, I can actually post my video as opposed to someone else's, right? So I started to do some digging, right? And with Mr. Jackson. And if I could share my screen.
Okay.
All right.
I'm not seeing it up yet.
All right, here we go.
I'm scared to share the screen, man. I don't know what you got, you know.
Well,
I feel like you setting me up, you know.
Nah, no setups. So, you know, we did this video called "Is Jesus Biting from Horus?" Now, biting is an old school hip hop term meaning to copy, to plagiarize, right? That's one of the accusations. And Jose, you know, you guys could watch this video in its entirety. We're just gonna do one point from this video. And one of the reasons why this debate wouldn't be good is because it would be over very quickly. And the reason why I say that is, you know, when you look at, you know, just a simple primary source, you know, that clearly debunks the virgin birth, right? Because they say that Horus is, you know, we get the virgin birth from Horus. So here we have coffin text spell 148, the conception of Horus. In this text, the transformation is accomplished by recounting the details surrounding the conception and birth of the falcon god Horus. You can find this in Ancient Egypt, Facts and Fictions, Stephen E. Thompson, page 211. So now this, ladies and gentlemen, this is the goddess Isis being quoted in this spell. She is speaking about this conception she has of her child Horus. MJ, could you be so kind as to read this quote?
I guess we should specify this ain't like this isn't PG right here. This is PG-13 apologetic.
It's a family show. It's a family show, but yeah, it's a little dicey.
Right.
Can I read the first word?
Is it family planning or is it family life? That's what are we talking about here? Is it a family show or is it family life here?
It's a family show.
Right. Okay.
Are y'all ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Ho, gods. Sorry. I am Isis, the sister of Osiris, who wept on account of the father of the gods. Osiris, who parted the slaughter of the two lands. His semen is inside my body.
His what?
His semen is inside my body.
Mm.
I have knitted the form of a god in the egg as my son, foremost of the Ennead, who will rule this land, who will inherit from Geb, who will speak for his father, who will slay Seth, the enemy of his father Osiris. Come, O gods, may you provide his protection within my uterus. Know in your hearts that this God who is in his egg is your Lord, the blue-haired one, the form of the Lord of gods who are great and beautiful, adorned with two plums of lapis lazuli.
So Adam, and this is a family show, right? Obviously. But if a woman receives semen, right, the old-fashioned way, we're not talking about in virtual insemination, but the old-fashioned way,
Right.
Is she still considered a virgin?
No, I'm pretty sure she meets the criteria for not being a virgin at that point. I'm pretty sure virgin status is done away with at that point.
Right.
So no, the answer is no. Right.
So
Right.
And again, primary source. Don't take my word for it. Don't take MJ. Listen to the goddess. She's telling you she got knocked up.
Right.
It's a done deal. There's no Holy Spirit. There's none of that. Right?
Bang, bang, Kemet gang.
Right.
We don't. More Provich is not needed to figure that part out.
Not at all.
We know something occurred. Right.
Not at all. Debate over. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you next week. That's really it, right? So you see how foolish it is for someone like Shaka to say that we're scared when the primary sources are actually on our side when it comes to this.
Yeah.
All right.
Facts.
Another show that me and MJ did, right, is Did Jesus Bite from Osiris? Right. We get this thrown at us all the time. Well,
right.
And following Osiris' Perspectives on the Osirian Afterlife from 4 Millennia by Mark Smith, says here, no ancient Egyptian sources record how or in what circumstances belief in Osiris arose. This silence has left considerable scope for speculation about his origins, an opportunity which modern scholars have not been slow to exploit. Various theories have been proposed, according to which Osiris was originally a god of agriculture, vegetation, or fertility, a Qanath deity, a pentagoddess, a jackal god, a personification of the deceased on the embalming bed, a deified human ruler, or an amalgam of all deceased kings, a generic royal ancestor. His cult, according to these theories, emanated from the Eastern Delta, Upper Egypt, or from abroad, whether the Levant, Libya, or even Babylonia. So you can't make the case that Jesus is a ripoff of Egypt when the scholars are still not sure if he is an original Egyptian deity.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna be intellectually honest, they would have to be like, "Dag, maybe Osiris was a ripoff from what, the Levant, Libya, or Babylonia."
Which type of god was he? Right. Was he vegetation, fertility, jackal? Like, we don't know what type of god, and we don't know where he was originally located from.
Yeah, facts.
Right. So just from this alone, it's hard to make this one-to-one correlation when you yourself cannot tell us that he is directly from Kemet, right? Now, in the Encyclopedia of Religion by Jonathan Z. Smith, it says the Assyrian myth can be reconstructed from pyramid texts of the 5th and 6th dynasties. While the names of the actors and details of the incidents vary, this record is remarkably consistent over 2,500 years. Osiris was murdered and his body dismembered and scattered. The pieces of his body were recovered and rejoined, and the god was rejuvenated. However, he did not return to his former mode of existence, but rather journeyed to the underworld, where he became the powerful lord of the dead. In no sense can Osiris be said to have, quote, risen, in a sense required by the dying and rising pattern. Most certainly, it was never conceived as an annual event. The repeated formula, rise up, you have not died, whether applied to Osiris or a citizen of Egypt, signaled a new permanent life in the realm of the dead. Osiris is a powerful god of the potent dead. In no sense can the dramatic myth of the death and reanimation be harmonized to the pattern of dying and rising gods. So, MJ, does this sound anything close to the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus?
Not at all. For one, let's just make it clear what the Bible teaches about Jesus. The Bible teaches that Jesus pre-existed his birth. Osiris did not. Osiris had a beginning. He's a contingent person. Osiris never said that no one can take my life, I lay it down. Osiris dies for no one. Jesus specifically laid out the mission even before it happened. Said, I lay my life down for the sheep. So no, there's no one-to-one correlation, which is what we see with not only the Kemetics, but what we see is people looking at the biblical data and then seeking a way to make what they have fit the mold of the biblical data. That's what we see, and it's fallacious.
Right. Yeah. I want to take it, just kind of add in too. I mean, this is why it's so important as we're doing apologetics that we be careful to be specific in terms of how we use terms, because when it comes to the resurrection of Jesus, we're not referring to some sort of like mystical or figurative, resurrection or anything like that. The claim of the early church, the claim of the church rather, is that Jesus rose bodily from the dead. You know what I'm saying? Obviously that's not the case here with Osiris. He goes on to have some sort of existence in the afterlife. But within the case of Jesus, again, he's the first fruits of the resurrection. He rose bodily from the dead, and in line with Jewish tradition, the idea is that you have what I know N.T. Wright refers to as life after death. Where ultimately our end game is that we will all be in some sort of physical existence here in the new heaven and the new earth. So again, just entirely different from what it is that we're seeing with Osiris.
Right. So Adam, as you see, we quickly dispatch two of the more popular internet accusations towards Christianity, right? It's that Jesus is a copycat of Osiris and or Horus, right? Now, what's interesting, right, Adam, is these people who are the conscious / Kemetic community, why don't they know their own literature? Because all we did was share the primary sources. Like I showed you a spell from the Book of the Dead, and we read the literature of the story of Osiris. It clearly disproves whatever accusations they're making. So either they're not reading their corpus of literature, or they're reading something else. And I decided I got inquisitive. I'm like, where are they getting these talking points from? Because clearly they're not getting it from the actual indigenous people of Kemet, right? So we started doing some digging, and this is from an article, Stolen Legacy or Mythical History, Did the Greeks Steal Philosophy from the Egyptians? By Mary Lefkowitz. It says the earliest descriptions of academies for Egyptian priests with large libraries and art galleries, in fact, first occurs not in any ancient text, but in an 18th century French work of historical fiction, the 1732 novel Cephals by Abbé Jean Terrasson. Terrasson's novel was widely read. It had a profound influence on portrayals of Egyptian religion and later literature, such as Mozart's Magic Flute. In 1731, classicist and philosopher Jean Terrasson published his only work of fiction, Cephals, History or Life from the Monuments Anecdotes of Ancient Egypt. The novel, set 2 generations before the Trojan War, is a biography of the Egyptian prince Cephals that describes his education, his initiation into a secret society of priests, his travels through Africa, and his eventual return to Egypt. Although the novel was initially only moderately successful, over the next century, 6 French editions were published, in addition to 7 translations into English, German, Italian, and Russian, suggesting that Cephals had a wide and varied readership. This is from The Mysteries of Isis, Jean Terrasson, Cephals, and European Fantasies of Ancient Egypt. In particular, initiation of Terrasson's hero into the Egyptian priesthood served as the inspiration for Masonic rituals. It is understandable that the Masons in the 18th century, when these rituals were established, regarded them as both ancient and Egyptian, since they had no other means of knowing about Egyptian religion than from Greek and Roman sources, and the later European accounts that were based on them. All authentic information about early Egyptian religion was inaccessible to them because the documents that described it could not be read before 1836, when the Rosetta Stone was discovered and hieroglyphics were finally deciphered. So, right, the idea of, well, what are they getting their information from? They're getting their information from a fictional novel by A.B. Tedderson. It's a fictional novel.
Right. Wow.
But here's the thing. They knew it was a fictional novel at that time.
Right.
They knew. It wasn't like surprise. It's very similar to the Dan Brown book, right? The Da Vinci Code. It's a fictional novel, but it gives an air of like scholarship. And, people ran with it. I'm like, but Dan Brown, it's a fictional novel.
Yeah, people did run with that junk. It's like, geez, man. Every 5 seconds, the Da Vinci Code was coming up. Yeah.
Right. But before Da Vinci Code, there were cephals from A.B. Tedderson.
It's the OG Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, OG Dan Brown. Your thoughts, MJ?
Well, I mean, the sources themselves tell you that this is a fictional novel. And so basically, at this point, people are faced with a choice. Do I continue to push this stuff? Or do I understand that this is a form of Egyptosophy? Okay. Better yet, the question that we should be asking is, how did this regurgitated garbage enter into the African American community?
Well, great question. We will be answering that.
No, that's good. And just for anybody watching that may not understand like why this is significant, I'm thinking two things. Number one, if you have this idea that Christianity is European in nature and comes from Europeans or anything like that, number one, and number two, you believe that it's fictional. If you're one of those people, and on that basis you reject Christianity, then if you're going to be consistent, you would also have to reject this modern version of Kemecticism, because we're showing you that the sources for which you derive some of these beliefs, and we'll get further on, get into it further, but we're showing you the sources for these beliefs are Europeans, and it's from, at least partially, from like fiction, right? So if you're going to be consistent, then you need to drop Kemecticism as well. That's what if you're going to be intellectually honest.
Remember, all authentic information about early Egyptian religion was inaccessible to them, because the documents that described it could not be read before 1836. So they're spitballing. Yeah. They're looking at the pictures and the glyphs, and they're freestyling and just figuring stuff out. And people are using these fictional accounts, and they're using it for their ritual events in these lodges. Right. But it gets worse.
Oh, it gets worse. Okay.
Oh man, listen. It is certainly understandable that Tedderson was unable to distinguish Greek rituals from indigenous Egyptian rituals. He could not read any inscriptions or papyri that describe ancient Egyptian rites and beliefs, since they were written in Egyptian alphabets such as hieroglyphics or hieratic script, which no one at the time could read. And another source that's used a lot by your boy James G. Jackson in the book Stolen Legacy, he quotes from this particular book quite a bit. This is Ancient Mysteries and Modern Masonry by Rev. C.H. Vell. In here it says, the learned Greek Plutarch, we spoke about Plutarch at length before, himself an initiate into the Osirica, of which there was probably a theosis at Delphi, gives much valuable information regarding the mysteries of Egypt. Of course, he could only give hints. You know why he could only give hints? Because Plutarch couldn't read the hieroglyphics.
Right. See, there's a consistent theme there, right?
But this book is talking about the Egyptian mysteries, and it's saying that it's learned these mysteries from the learned Greek Plutarch, but he can only give hints. Right? In fact, if you study Plutarch, you would see that what he did was use ancient Egyptian religion as a centrifuge to really espouse upon the more superior Platonism that he actually believed in. Right? So Plutarch is literally whitewashing the Kemetic belief system. All right. And he's calling that the Egyptian mysteries.
Interesting.
Right.
Interesting. So now we have at least 2 degrees of separation from whatever it is that the indigenous people of Kemet practice and believed. Because you already got your boy. I've lost his name already. I'm like drawing a blank here. But the gentleman with Sethos, Abby, so and so. Right. And this gentleman here. Right. So we got 2 strikes already.
Right. Yeah. You have a Plutarch who's an Egyptian cosplayer who has a fetish for ancient Kemecticism, but knows nothing of it. And you have Tedosong, a Frenchman, making a fictional novel because he too could not read the hieroglyphics nor understand any of the actual belief of Kemecticism. So he just made it up.
Right.
And the Freemasons went with it. But also in Mr. Vell's Ancient Mysteries of Modern Masonry, he brings up this other person by Epiphanes. As an outsider, could not be expected to understand the rites he describes. Which is weird. So why are we listening to this guy? If he can't understand?
Right, disqualified already, right?
You know what I mean? Off the gate. And as a narrow bigot, he could not be expected to deal with them fairly. But the importance of the passage is the testimony it bears to the fact that one of the most widespread mystic festivals was connected with a, quote, rite of resurrection. You notice here the crowing of the cock, which is connected with the crucifixion of Jesus, and the cross marked on the forehead, hands, and knees or feet of the image, or the one who has returned from the underworld. Remember, this is a book that's being quoted heavily by James G. Jackson, Stolen Legacy. He's using this book to make his point.
I don't know if people realize like how big of a deal that is in terms of so if we're going to look at the family tree of the conscious community people that we typically deal with today, I'll just make it more specific, like the Kemetics. So when you go on, and there's no shade or anything like that, but the guys who generally present as being Kemetics on Side TV or Garfield's channel and so forth, like these guys, the sources that you're quoting, like the John Jacksons, those would be like the grandfathers and great grandfathers of the people that we're dealing with today. So their lineage of information, we're just kind of following the breadcrumbs back, and it's not looking too good. Looks like John G. Jackson was out here quoting from, I can't even pronounce it, Epiphanius, whatever. Who
I just want to understand the rites he describes. Like, so why are we listening?
Yo,
MJ, what's going on?
Let me make one small correction, because they'll take what we just said, run with it, and make a 7-hour video about it. It's George G.M. James who wrote Stolen Legacy. Jackson is important. He's another one. John G. Jackson is important, by the way. But it's James, because they have a field day.
Good catch. Good catch. That's why you're the living library. That's why we got you, bro.
So in this same book that this guy quotes from Stolen Legacy, he says the Egyptian mysteries had 3 grades called mortals, intelligences, and creators of light. The mortals were probationary pupils who were instructed in the doctrine, but who had not yet realized the inner vision. The intelligences were those who had attained the inner vision and had become men and received mind. The creators of sons of light were those who had become one with the light and attained to true spiritual consciousness. These 3 stages are called by W. Marsham Adams initiation, illumination, and perfection. This state could be attained while yet in the body and included in the after-death consciousness as part of its content. Now, listen, right? This is Ancient Mysteries and Modern Masonry, right? It's breaking down these 3 grades that's based on people who could not read the actual glyphs. Okay? Plutarch gave you hints. Epiphanes couldn't describe the things that he was actually saying.
Right. It's
right?
Bad. Right.
It's looking bad. But between these gentlemen, they've concocted this tier system mortals, intelligences, and creators of light. This is nowhere in indigenous Kemet. They're literally making this up. Now, why is this such a big deal? Well, there's a video on YouTube by Ashwa called The Craft of Amen-Ra African Mystery System Number 1. MJ, can you read the screenshot? What is he got there?
He's doing some really deep teaching. You're not going to learn this at church. This is what your pastor didn't tell you.
All right, Ray.
Watch out. All right. So he says grades of students in the mystery system. The Egyptian mysteries had 3 grades of students. 1, mortals, i.e. probationary students who were being instructed but who had not yet experienced inner vision. 2, the intelligences, i.e. those who had attained the inner vision and had received mind or nous. 3, the creators or sons of light who had become identified with or united with the light. True African spiritual consciousness. Sounds like Gnosticism.
Yeah, that's exactly what came to mind.
It sounds like what we just read.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the same 3 grades. It's literally verbatim.
Wow. Wow. And what was that fraudulent source again? Let's just make it clear.
C.H. Vell's Ancient Mysteries and Modern Masonry, 1909. So read the glyphs.
So one of the so-called master teachers in the conscious community, Asher Kwesi, is biting straight from V.H. Vales, this Masonic guy. Is that correct? Okay. I just want to check. I just want to make sure.
He's quoting it.
The white man is what
right.
He's quoting and he's calling it. But look what he's calling it though. He's calling it the Amen-Ra African Mystery System.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. There's nothing African about this, ladies and gentlemen.
Put some blackface on it.
It's European and French cosplaying of ancient Kemet.
Yeah.
It is a fetish. It is a fantasy. They didn't have a clue. But it gets worse though, Adam. Because as you know, Ashwa Kwesi, he inducts people into the craft of Amen-Ra.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, it's true.
If you go with him on 3 different excursions to ancient Egypt with him, on the 3rd trip, he initiates you into the craft. One of the more famous initiates that he's had is General Sarah Sultan Seti.
Oh, snap now.
Because if you go to his website, it says 2003, General Seti made his first pilgrimage to Egypt under master teacher Ashwa Kwesi. General Seti went on to take 2 more trips in 2004 and 5 for a total of 3 years, which after he was raised into the craft of Tehuti.
Now, I mean, I don't want to be redundant, but seriously, I really want people to catch this. Like, if you just follow this lineage, this fraudery, you know what I'm saying? We've gone from those whacked out novels and European sources, and now we're getting down to what I was talking about. Some of these guys who we're dealing with today, this is where they flow from, yo. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Can I just make one comment? Please don't get mad at me, fellow co-hosts.
Uh-oh.
I just want it to be known that we're not trashing Egypt. What we are trashing is this regurgitated garbage that has crept its way into the African American community. If we're going to celebrate Egypt, let's celebrate the real thing.
I'm with it. I agree. Like, when it comes to, like, people, I don't really say this very often, but one thing that I really enjoy is mathematics. You know what I'm saying? I got a book on. Anyway, you know what I'm saying? I'm fascinated by Egypt when it comes to their mathematical feats and architecture and all those kinds of things. Like, this is not like a diss session against Kemet. That's not what this is. But like MJ said, like, let's just stop lying. Like, let's build on the truth. Like, if we unearth something that leads us to believe that what is being put forth as Kemetic is untrue, then we shouldn't rock with it. I mean, it's really that simple. It's really that simple. So yeah. But I'm glad you made that point.
But it's sad, right? Because Seti, every time you see him, Black African Power family, Black African Power.
Well, yeah, it's true.
No power here, buddy. You got initiated into a fanciful Frenchman's dreams. That's what you got initiated into.
If his power is not Black African, you know what I mean? It might be like white power, if anything. I don't know. Right. You know what I'm saying?
But it's not just him being initiated into things like this. Who's this, Adam?
Uh-oh.
Who's that?
Like Dr. Ben to me.
Who's that?
Like Dr. Ben Yohakinan to me.
Is he a Shriner?
That's a Shriner's hat.
It look like a Shriner. Oh my God.
Oh, snap.
One of the pillars.
It's getting deep. It's getting deep.
He got the gold pyramid on. Right?
Right.
Cosplaying, ladies and gentlemen. There's nothing African about that hat and what that hat stands for. But not just him,
not the good doctor.
How about some more? Yeah, how about some more modern day pillars of the community? Like Brother Polite. Now, this is not some secret archive. He put this on his Facebook page. He's a hashtag a traveling man, which is code for a Freemason.
Right. That ain't African, fam.
That's not African. There's nothing Kemetic about that says. Nothing. And these are the guys that are teaching you Black power.
Right.
They're teaching you Comic-Con. That's what they're teaching you.
You know what's funny is that like on the intro of my show, if people are kind of listening to like the little snippets I have, there's this one snippet that I took where I was talking with Jabari, and I said something real quick, and it's just like, I said something like, you guys teach things that would literally be unrecognizable to an ancient African. This is what I'm talking about. Like I wasn't making that up. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. They teach stuff that would be unrecognizable to the people of Kemet that they refer to as being their ancient ancestors. You see what I'm saying? Right.
So we got fanciful Frenchmen with their fictional novels. We have these European freestylers who are just making stuff up because they can't read the glyphs. But there's other stuff going on as well. All right. So yeah, we went down the rabbit hole quite a bit, me and MJ. So
oh, that's great, man.
This is Egyptology and Hermeticism, an esoteric European tradition by Barbara de Poli. On the symbolic horizon of Freemasonry, it was Egypt, above all which took an axial value as a repository of a heritage of continuity over millennia, what Egyptologist Eric Honig calls Egyptosophy. Egyptosophy. That is the fertile and heterogeneous complex of traditions which attribute to Egypt the source of every occult wisdom and knowledge, has remote origins deeply rooted in European culture. So the idea that everything comes from Kemet comes from this term, this group of people, and this corpus of literature called Egyptology. This is where it comes from. So when people say that Christianity is a ripoff of ancient Kemet, this is the material that they're using, ladies and gentlemen. Right? The mother of this system, Egyptology of wisdom, and the keystone of Egyptology is Hermeticism, a doctrine concerning the divinity and spiritual elevation of man through an initiatory way full of astrological and alchemical contents in Egyptian magical practices. The home of the Hermetic tradition is considered to be Egypt, and its founder, Hermes Trismegistus, the Greek name for the Egyptian god Thoth. However, only a few doctrinal precedents of Hermeticism can be found in Pharaonic Egypt. They did believe the same pagan religions, particularly the religion of Egypt, had a monotheistic core upon which later polytheistic apparatus was imposed. This was believed to be a later corruption that won favor with the masses. The writings of Hermes were seen as evidence of this hidden monotheism reserved for the elites, and Hermes was viewed as a prophet for Egypt, while some possible links existing between him and Moses. So Trismegistus, he's actually considered a pre-dynastic sage, right? He is the fountain of all wisdom. And this guy pops up everywhere, right? And we're talking Christian mysticism. We're talking about the Kabbalah. there are medieval sources that say that Trismegistus was Idris in the Quran. You know, I would have to do more research on that, but he shows up everywhere in these ancient, quote unquote, ancient mystery systems. All right. So, in reality, Hermes Trismegistus was a Hellenistic creation, and the most of the celebrated texts associated with this supposed Egyptian sage post-dated the New Testament. Thus, this view of Egypt was totally baseless. But this was not known until after it had molded the consciousnesses of the West. All right, this is from Origins of Jesus Mysticism, Confused Esoteria and Angry Polemic by Albert McHelney. So, right, but this fictional stuff traveled throughout Europe.
But and that was the basis for what we were talking about before. Is I guess maybe in the 1800s and 1900s, kind of where that came from. Is that what you're saying? Or
and we get into that. This is before the 1900s, but there's a resurgence. But we'll get to that. MJ, before I continue, you want to say anything?
Yeah, Hermes, the Greek dude who made his way into the African American community by way of the Europeans and those who regurgitate their garbage. This dude was a Hellenistic creation. I mean, it's thoroughly documented. Paul Harrison documents it well in this gem right here, Profane Egyptology. Basically, everything that we're presenting tonight, really got to give Alfredo a pat on the back, because this is, to be perfectly honest, that dude documented the same stuff that you're talking about, and this was his dissertation. So the level of work that you're doing is crazy. Just to not to be a cheerleader for the squad, but I'm just gonna put that out there.
Oh, that's real work, man.
Thank you.
This is real work. This is not just fun and games YouTubery. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is real. And these are tracking down real sources.
So.
But had I knew that you was going to do all this work, I wouldn't have paid $100 for that book. But, but the fact of the matter is, okay, this Hermes, thrice great. I don't like saying that funny word. His work emerges in after the first into the second century. Is that a bad thing? Okay, well, you got to ask yourself a question. What is the manuscript evidence, right? Because, we're not just looking at dates, but what is the There are ways scholars go about determining if a work goes further into the date before the first extant manuscripts, right? And we've done it with, we've done it with the New Testament documents. Does the work report things in them that were going on in previous centuries, or is it reporting, sociological features of the time that it emerged in? And there was really nothing unique about, the work of Hermes, thrice great. It was Hellenistic. It wasn't Egyptian. That's the whole point,
right?
That's the whole point,
right? Well, I think there's even more problems, MJ. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it wasn't Egyptian. And for people whose whole thing is like, well, if it's not African, I'm not going to rock with it. Okay, then you need to identify the inklings of teachings that you've gotten from Hermes, thrice great or whatever, and you need to get rid of those too. But also, if you're going to be consistent, one thing that we hear all the time when it comes to the historicity of Jesus, right? People kind of want to turn their nose up at the documentation that we have for that. Like, oh, Tacitus is too late, or, we don't have any contemporary, blah, 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 because they'll discount, the New Testament authors. But, with that being the case, okay, well, with Hermes, and all the teachings associated with him and his depiction of ancient Kemet, we're talking about a guy who's supposedly pre-dynastic. So if we don't have any documents from him until like the 2nd century AD, but we're talking about a guy who supposedly lived in the pre-dynastic period. We're talking about millennia, ago, from the time that we have the documents to when he supposedly lived. I'm saying he supposedly lived several millennia prior to, when we have documents of him. If you're going to be consistent, then again, you need to get rid of Hermes and all the teachings that go with him. I'm saying that you should at least look at them with the side eye that you do Christianity, if you're going to be consistent.
And that's a great segue to this particular quote here. It says, the code of Hermes Trismegistus had claimed to preserve the teachings of the greatest sage of Egypt. Many took these assertions for granted, and the thrice great Hermes was held as the source of the most ancient mysteries and sometimes worshipped as a god. In some texts, he was addressed as, quote, king of all knowledge and father and teacher of all, and identified as teacher of Osiris and Isis. So yes, he goes way back, allegedly, right? To your point, Adam.
So he said he was the teacher of Osiris and Isis.
Yes, sir.
Oh man, nah, man. That's like the whole nah, man. That's the whole kit and caboodle right there, bro. You know what I'm saying? That's like their king and queen right there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
because if he's the
I
teacher of Isis and Osiris, and then Horus is the child of Isis and Osiris, I'm saying you got to throw Horus in there too. He's going to come from that at least informational or spiritual tradition, or however you want to call it. And we're tracing it back to essentially a Greek dude Hermes, for whom we don't really even have any legit documentation. It just gets worse, man. It gets worse and worse,
and
bro.
it continues to get worse. For example,
Oh man.
While the zodiac played a large role in Hermeticism, it was foreign to Egyptian thought until the Ptolemaic era, until the white folk showed up.
Interesting.
Ideas emerging from Hellenistic philosophy were also integrated into Hermeticism, and many believed Plato and other Greek thinkers learned their ideas from Egyptian priests. In actuality, Hermeticism built a Greek philosophical facade around a set of hybrid Greco-Egyptian core beliefs. The real achievement of Hermeticism was projecting Hellenistic ideas back upon ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt was not without its own esoteric beliefs, but theirs were not the astrology and other practices of its later Greek rulers. The differences between classical and Hellenistic Egypt prompted the Egyptologist Eric Hornung to label concepts of this later period as Egyptosophy, in opposition to Egyptology of earlier Egyptian rule. It was left.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but that's pretty significant though, because Eric Hornung is a serious historian, and I don't want people to miss that. Like he's saying that this Ptolemaic or later era of Greek influence upon Egypt that was later overlaid onto ancient Egypt. He's saying that it's so radically different that they shouldn't even be referred to with the same category. It's literally two distinct things. That's pretty significant. That's pretty significant.
And let me also add, I believe that the Egyptians were black or African. Let's just black is socially constructed word. African. I believe that they're African, right? Because this is racist. What the Hellenists did was racist. The ancient Kemetics must have been so great that these cats had to paint it all in whiteface, basically.
Yep.
That's what they had to do. So why are we still holding on to this? You just heard the term Egyptosophy, right? Well, the Kemetics would also push back against Egyptology. No, we do Kemeticism. Okay.
It's all looking suspect to me.
If Kemeticism looks like Egyptosophy, you're still doing something fraudulent.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
I just had to put that super chat up because your boy Ben is giving y'all a shout out, man. And I agree. Between
Ben.
The slides and the encyclopedia knowledge of MJ, it's dangerous out here, man. It's dangerous out here.
You too kind.
Yeah.
So it was left to Isaac Casaubon, one of the greatest classical scholars of his day, to break the spell Hermeticism held on the Renaissance mind in a critique of Hermeticism placed within a Protestant polemical work debunking a counter-Reformation church history. However, as it had appeared in the treatise not directly dealing with Hermeticism, Casaubon's strong salvos against the movement took time to be widely circulated among Hermeticists. However, once the implications of his systematic dismantling of Hermeticism was absorbed, the Hermetic revival began collapsing like a house of cards.
Wow.
And this is why. Casaubon's careful analysis detected the clear style and usage of late antiquity in Corpus Hermeticum. He demonstrated the texts originated in this period were likely written after the New Testament. And any proposed authorship in ancient Egypt was untenable. The Corpus Hermeticum was a product of the first few centuries AD without any connection to any ancient Egyptian sage.
Wow.
In other words, Corpus Hermeticum was a fraud. This was debunked like in the 17th century, family. Hermes was debunked 17th century.
And we still dealing with it, bro. That's crazy. That's crazy.
In the words of John Henrik Clarke, this is neglected scholarship of honest Europeans.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that quote in a minute. Yeah.
Neglected scholarship.
So the Hermetic movement, whose greatest thinker was Giordano Bruno, took inspiration from a body of mystic writings attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, a supposed Egyptian sage often identified with the god Thoth. Did I read this already? No. In reality, the works thought to be those of Hermes dated from 2nd and 3rd century CE. But belief in their vast age, Egyptian origins, and mystic power was widespread, not knowing that the sacred text actually post-dated Jesus.
Wow.
Adepts were also impressed by the seemingly uncanny anticipations of Christian teachings they contained, Hermetic doctrine. This is from Afrocentrism, Mythical Past, and Imagined Homes by Stephen Howe. But you see, they thought that this came first and Christianity came later. And it's like, you see how similar it is to the real religion of Hermes Trismegistus?
Right. Well, yeah, now we see why.
Right.
Because he was biting from Christianity, right?
Exactly.
Right. But and to another point too, is one of the complaints that we get from the conscious community at large, definitely Kemetics, is that because Christianity is supposedly younger, than I'll just say some form of Kemeticism, that they take issue with that. It's like, oh, yo, why you're messing with that when you go to the original? But now we're finding out that what you believe to be the original ain't so original. It's actually the other way around. What's actually the case is you're the ones who are subscribing to younger beliefs that we can see were bitten off of Christianity. So now the shoe's on the other foot. I keep going back to it, man. If cats are going to be consistent, you gotta leave this stuff alone, man.
Yep. And it still gets worse, ladies and gentlemen. We still
gets worse.
We still didn't get to the M. Night Shyamalan plot
Throw in the towel. Throw in the towel.
All first verse. Despite this fall from favor, seeds of the Hermetic revival flowered into an explosion of interest in the, quote, mysteries of Egypt. When Hermeticism was long forgotten, the mystique of the secret wisdom flourished, and it continues to this day. It is irrelevant that Hermeticism had nothing to do with ancient pharaohs. The interest it generated in the, quote, mysteries of Egypt long outlived the system that produced them. The Hermetic revival fueled subsequent esoteric speculations on the secret truth behind all religion. And the dreams lived and flourished even as the movement that created them faded from memory. And here are some of the people that brought back Hermeticism into the modern world. People such as Gerald Massey, Ancient Egypt, the Light of the World. Says here, according to this earlier Bible, death came into the world by ignorance, not by knowledge, as in the Christian travesty of the Egyptian teaching. As Hermes says, quote, the wickedness of a soul is ignorance. The virtue of a soul is knowledge. And he's quoting the divine Pymander, which is part of the Corpus Hermeticum. You have Albert Churchward's aim to demonstrate that the secrets of Freemasonry descended directly in unbroken line from the wisdom of ancient Egypt. Egypt was the origin not only of civilization, but of all a true or natural religion, of which all later faiths are offshoots and merely partial expressions. Like a bad carbon copy, as a certain Kemetic priest said to you, Adam.
Now we see where that idea came from. Right.
This too is a notion which goes back to Giordano Bruno and the Hermeticists. Then you have people like Godfrey Higgins. Quote, the learned Maurice entertains no doubt that the elder Baru of India is no other than the elder Hermes Trismegistus of Egypt, and that the original character is of antediluvian race. So you have Gerald Massey, Albert Churchward, and Godfrey Higgins resurrecting the Corpus Hermeticum into the modern world. Why is that such a big deal for the conscious community? Well, Dr. John H. Clark response to a 1992 New York Times op-ed by Henry Louis Gates Jr. entitled Black Demagogues and Pseudo Scholars, right? Henry Louis Gates came for Dr. John Henry Clark and called him pseudo. This is his response that was written in the New York Times. And this is his response to being called pseudo by Henry Louis Gates. Okay. Most of the old and new Black scholars asking for a total reconsideration of African history, in particular, and world history in general, are using neglected documents by radical white scholars who are generally neglected by the white academic community. In African history, I am referring to scholars like Gerald Massey.
Oh, my goodness.
And his work, Egypt, Light of the World, the Book of Beginnings, and Natural Genesis. I'm also referring to Gerald Massey's greatest English disciple, Albert Churchward, whose book, The Signs and Symbols of Primordial Man, asks for a reconsideration of the role of people outside of Europe and their role in human development. Your attention should also be called to the work of Anacletus, 2 volumes by Godfrey Higgins, published in 1837.
Wow. I need a buzzer right now. Like, like Don DeMarco. Bro. I mean, no, I like people. And you know what? Matter of fact, I have a video because there's another place too where John Henry Clark mentions definitely Gerald Massey. I think at least one of those other 2 names when he was in a debate. I think it was with Lefkowitz, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll make sure I tag that in so people can actually see him saying this as well. But this is huge, man, because for those who don't know, Dr. John Henry Clark is like he's like the Julius Irving of the modern day conscious community. Like if you have let's say if somebody like Brother Polite is like LeBron James, Dr. Henry Clark would be like a Julius Irving. You know what I'm saying? For those who understand how basketball history a little bit. So this is major. Like one of their OGs is not only did he refer to these clearly pseudo works that are pushing this hermetic stuff, but he's referring to other people to him as well as if they're like legitimate sources. So basically he responded to Henry Louis Gates' claim that he was pseudo by promoting pseudo,
by proving him right. By proving him right.
By proving him right. And what's a demagogue, right? What's a demagogue? A demagogue is a political leader who seeks support by appealing to the desires and prejudice of ordinary people rather than by using rational argumentation. So what was going on during this time? How did folks like Clark and Dr. Ben come to rise? Well, when you have a people who have been beaten down through your existence in this country, that leaves holes to be filled, right? So you got affirmative action taking place. You got the establishment of African American studies departments and universities, and up come these people with bad credentials. I don't think their credentials are legit. And instead of pushing real, and let me just say this. Not all of them are pseudo. Dr. Greg Carr is a decent scholar. Malana Karanga, I question some of the stuff in his book, but he's pretty solid. I question Molif, Asante, but they all got legitimate credentials, legitimate PhDs. They put the work in, even though they would highly respect. Look, my epistemology and our epistemology, just because you are elder and you say something that make us feel good, we're not just going to take it as gospel truth. It's going to be tested. It's going to be tested according to the canons of historiography. It's going to be tested through by the laws of logic. It's going to be tested to see if it's livable. We're not just going to take it just because somebody who's an elder says something that make us feel good. But the fact of the matter is, there was a historical situation taking place in this country with the revolution of Negroes going transitioning to becoming black. Dr. Carl Ellis talks about this in his book Free at Last.
Yeah, great
book.
Mm-hmm.
This is that revolutionary period where black power is coming into play, and you got guys like these leading the charge.
And it's not just Dr. Clark either.
Okay, let's go. Yeah. Goodness gracious.
This is
Alfredo don't be playing, man. I'm sorry, because Alfredo does not be playing, bro. He has slides for everything. You know what I'm saying? Slides for every occasion. He has receipts. He is a living receipt. You know what I'm saying? If MJ Jackson is the living library, you're the living receipt. Go ahead, bro. I didn't mean to cut you off.
And this is from I think this is a lecture called "The Nile Valley Civilization and the Spread of African Culture" by Yosef ben Yochanan. It was the Greeks like Plato, Aristotle, and others who came and learned. In those days, the students would come and read for their education. There were no books to take home. There were no publishing houses like now. You had only one book, and most of the subjects were taught orally. Certain instructions were given toe to toe, shoulder to shoulder, mouth to ear. I will go no further than that. Some of you here may know how that was done and under what conditions. The English adopted it and called it Freemasonry. Sir Albert Churchward's book, Signs and Symbols of Primordial Man, is a cornerstone of Freemasonry. Churchward was a big man in England. Besides being a physician, he was also one of those who made English Freemasonry what it is today. So Joseph ben Yochanan quoting
riding the Churchward. Wow.
Especially interesting case is the use made by Afrocentrists of writings by Albert Churchward, an English medical man, ardent Freemason, and amateur Egyptologist. Writing in the first few decades of this century, he is cited as an authority by such figures as Molif Asante, John G. Jackson, and Henry Olea, and repeatedly by Joseph ben Yochanan.
Wow.
There's two more.
You
have Asa G. Hilliard III. In his book, The Meaning of Kemet, he says many European and European American scholars also began to lift the veil of ignorance and to destroy racist ideas about Kemet and the role of Africans in it. And there's a little number 5 I highlighted. That's the footnote. So let's look at the footnote and let's see which European and European American scholars were lifting the veil of ignorance. Albert Churchward, The Signs and Symbols of Primordial Man, and Gerald Massey.
Wow.
Pillars.
Wow. Hey, man, BK Posits is in them footnotes, fam. This man is in your footnotes. Yo, that's crazy, yo. That's crazy. Again, this is the house of cards, yo. This is the house of cards. Yahawashi, John G. Jackson. Asa Hilliard. Dr. Henry Clark. We already got caught Asher Crazy slipping. You know what I'm saying? Like this is literally, I don't know if there's any OGs left. I mean, this is like, these are the guys that they always cite.
You still got Browder pushing it.
Oh, okay, true. But he's gonna ride with a Dr. Ben too, though. Like he looks up to a Dr. Ben. So to me, he's like a generation like after, a Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark. So he's still beholden to that, legacy as well. But man.
Now, why were these gentlemen able to bring so much of this basically pseudo information, and why did it stick so much into African Americans, for this long? Well, Clark was a professor of Black and Puerto Rican studies at Hunter College of the City University of New York from 1969 to 1986. Dr. Ben taught at City College in New York City from 1973 to 1987. He was an adjunct professor at Cornell University. A.C.G. Hilliard was an African-American professor of educational psychology, right? He taught at Georgia State University, served as the dean of the School of Education in San Francisco State University. So these gentlemen taught in legitimate houses of learning.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
But what they were teaching wasn't legitimate. Because think about it. You go to Hunter College, you go to these actual accredited universities, you put your money down, and the assumption is when you sit in your seats, whatever is being taught to you has to be official, right?
Mm-hmm.
It got to be legit. So here comes these guys trying out all good old Hermes, and black and brown folk are taking it in as if this is the gospel, because this got to be scholarship, because I'm in Hunter College, I'm in Cornell getting taught this. It must be true.
Right. And it's sad because, I mean, you do give some level of credence to, an instructor that you would, come across in those settings. And the thing is, like, even if, say, a Dr. Ben or Dr. Clark, let's say for some reason they didn't realize somehow that Gerald Massey and church were that these people were like, fraudulent, and maybe they didn't know what we know about Hermes and so on and so forth. The bottom line is we know it. We can trace the line of bad information, regardless of what their intentions were. I mean, it's not about, they were liars or deceivers. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. That's irrelevant. What we can do is we can trace the line of information and find the fruit of, the forbidden fruit, if you will, or the poisonous fruit, I should say, of just flat out fabrication. I mean, going all the way back to Hermes and Plutarch and so forth.
Right.
Yeah.
And yes, Victoria, we're still not done. We're still not done.
Pack it up.
Oh my goodness.
Just a quick summary of what we saw thus far, right? Alleged similarities between Christianity and ancient paganism. That's done away with. Right? They didn't know, not knowing that these sacred texts were actually post-dated Jesus, and that these things are a Hellenistic product posing as an ancient Egyptian wisdom. And the Corpus Hermeticum was a product of the first few centuries AD without any connection to an ancient Egyptian sage. In other words, Corpus Hermeticum was a fraud. So, even as Hermeticism faded, replacements appeared on the horizon. One made its debut in 1614 when a series of texts were published touting the mysteries of Christian Rosicrucian. His uncorrupted body was supposedly discovered clutching a book of his secret teachings, the Order of the Rosy Cross. A secret group committed to these teachings were now ready to reform the world. Authorship of these texts has always been debated, but they likely originated in circles that included Valentin, Andrea, and Tobias Hess. The entire account of Christian Rosicrucian was fictional. He never existed. There was no Order of the Rosicrucian. And the story was partly based on a satirical work by Triano Bussolini. Again, fiction, satire. Despite a dubious lineage, the text provided impetus for later Rosicrucian movements, claiming a supposed descent from the original followers. The texts were a sensation, and many wished to join the fictional order. So this is a denomination, if you will, of Hermeticism, right? Rosicrucianism.
Got you. Okay.
And the origin was this ancient sage, his uncorrupt body. He had, basically he's Mumra, the ever living, right? And they found this textbook. They found this textbook, and that textbook is the thing, the sacred and ancient teachings. Come to find out, satirical work by Triano Bussolini. The origins of the Rosicrucian movement can be traced to a German publications in 1614-15, which attributed to an invented or allegorical Christian Rosicrucian. Travels in the Arab world where he had studied science and the magical arts to gain esoteric knowledge, ultimately derived from the ancient world. This claim was further straightened by Michael Mayer, physician to the House of Habsburg and enthusiast for alchemy and the occult. wrote an Egyptian Hermetic interpretation of fable and myth. As the Rosicrucian movement developed, at times interwoven with Freemasonry, the emphasis on an Egyptian origin of many of its mysteries grew. All right, invented or allegorical, like this Christian Rosicrucian, Mum-Ra never existed. He just never existed. Right?
Right.
Again, the entire account of Christian Rosicrucian was fictional. He never existed. There was no Order of the Rosy Cross, and the story was partly based on a satirical work by Trino Bussolini. Now things get really interesting.
Hey, it's already interesting, bro.
So
I can't take anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Now we got another plot twist coming.
Oh, okay.
Rosicrucian Anthroposophic League. What a name. My goodness. Harkening back to the influence of Rudolf Steiner and Max Hendel, S.R. Parchment, a former member of the Rosicrucian Fellowship, formed the Rosicrucian Anthroposophic League in San Francisco in the 1930s. Parchment wrote a series of books to expound his version of the Rosicrucian teachings: The Middle Path, Steps to Self-Master, Operative Masonry, and the Just Law of Compensation. Parchment offered a variety of correspondence courses using the text. The League also published a magazine, Rosicrucian Quarterly. The occult basis of the League is spelled out in its objectives: investigate the occult laws of nature and the superphysical powers of man. Promote the principles which will eventually lead to recognition of the truth and universal brotherhood of man without distinction as to sex, creed, race, or color. Acquire, disseminate, exemplify a knowledge of spiritual truth as given to the world by the elder brothers of the White Lodge. The White Lodge.
Wow.
All right.
Wow.
The Osar Society. Was formed by R.A. Strong. Known by his religious name, Ra'un Nefer Amen. A member during the 1970s of what? The Rosicrucian Anthroposophic League.
Wow.
A black man, Strand became an occult teacher to the black community, and around 1980 established an independent organization that applied the universal occult truths of Rosicrucianism to the Afro-American situation.
Wow.
Strong has written several occult texts: The Realization of Neternu, Health Teachings of the Ageless Wisdom, and Meditation Techniques of the Kabbalists, Vedantins, and Taoists.
Now, see, that's huge too, because a lot of people may not be as familiar with him, but yeah, Ra'un Nefer Amen, you can see his stuff on YouTube as well. He's another one of those OGs that would be like in the class of like a Dr. Henry Clark and so forth. Like he's another one of those Kemetic OGs, and we see him. You know, it was like a European plant, you know, by the Rosicrucian League here. You know, it's
I mean, basically, that's what he is. He's a Rosicrucian draped in kente cloth. That's what the All-Star Asset Society is. Right?
Facts. Yeah. Now,
let me see here. Yeah. Other books manifest a particular interest in the needs of Black Americans: Black Woman's Black Man's Guide to Spiritual Union and Black Woman, Black Man in a Quandary. In 1980, he started a magazine, The Oracle of Thoth. The Oracle of Thoth, also known as what? Hermes Trismegistus.
Right.
Or Tahuti.
And by 1982, offered classes in the Society's occult teachings in New York, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Philadelphia, New Haven, and Norfolk. So if you're wondering why this thing has such a grip on the East Coast, now you know why.
Now you know. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
Thank God for the South.
Yeah, Norfolk's not, I mean, but Norfolk's in the South though. That's Virginia. That's my home. That's my home state. Yeah.
So again, this is from Circle of the Sun, Rites and Celebrations of Egyptian Pagans and Kemetics. In 1973, R.A. Strahan, an African-American member of the Rosicrucian Anthropological League, founded his own tradition called the Osar Asset Society. Rosicrucianism, a society related to the Hermetic order of the Golden Dawn, claimed to be descended from the 18th dynasty Egyptian priests. But they're not from the
that's a
Egyptian
lie.
priests, are they?
Nah, we know that's a lie. Yeah.
Right. It was a segregated society, however, and the Rosicrucian Anthropological League was the branch designated for African Americans. So what you said earlier, Adam, you was right. This is the black version.
Right.
Right.
I like the way you said it, wrapped in kente cloth. I think, yeah, that's
that's pretty much what it is.
Right.
Now calling himself Ra'un Nefer Amen incorporated what elements of Hermeticism, such as the Tree of Life, into a more specifically Egyptian framework for the Asa Aset Society, an Afrocentric organization. The Asa Aset Society was probably the first group to adopt the word Kemetic to refer to Egyptian religion from a native, more specifically African perspective.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't know that.
Now,
wow.
this is a quote from the Asa Aset Society's website. This is what they say about themselves.
Okay.
The Asa Aset Society is a pan-African organization based on the indigenous traditional form of African cultural expression, dating from its earliest recorded period of ancient Egypt, Indus Kush, and Canaan, Ethiopia, and Sumer to the present, the traditional area of the Akan of Ghana, Yoruba, Nigeria, Bantu of Southern Africa, Yoruba of Ghana, etc. Indigenous traditional form of African cultural expression. Is Rosicrucianism an indigenous traditional form of African cultural expression?
Nah, fam, that's fraudulent. It's possible. We just saw that.
No.
Right?
But if I don't know their history and I go to their website and I'm looking for an indigenous traditional African experience, that this is where I'm going. But this is not what they're giving you. They're not giving you Africa. Now, our good friend, Jabari Osase, has said on more than one occasion that he came from the Asa Set Society, right? Before he linked up with Baba Heru and created the Shrine of Ma'at.
Yeah,
but
that's his roots, right?
This is his roots, and he holds that experience very dear because when you go to Jabari's website, the Center of Ma'at, and you look at his bio, it says here, Jabari Osase has studied ancient Egypt for nearly 25 years, focusing primarily on the areas of philosophy, esoteric symbols, and sacred science. Brother Osase has led study groups in Egypt since 2002 and tours of the world-renowned Egyptian collections of New York's Brooklyn Museum and Metropolitan Museum of Art, while completing his Bachelor of Science degree at Cornell University. Brother Osase's studies led him to the monumental works of Ra'un Nefer Amen and R.A. Segwala de la Books. He began focusing on the practice of the ancient Egyptian Kemetic ideal. Now, this Swashwala del la Books, what is he about? Well, you can find out about him from Alchemy, a memoir, Hermetic, Occult, Political, and Private Aspects of R.A. Shawala de la Books.
Wow.
So two monumental works are steep in Rosicrucianism and Hermeticism.
As he sits back and takes a sip of tea or whatever that is, you know what I'm saying? He just dropped those bars right quick. Sit back, take a little sip, man. I mean, it's wild. So again, Jabari would be an example of the guys I was talking about. It's like that's kind of bringing us to today. I mean, any given day, you can flip on side of the TV and find Jabari Osase. And this is actually not even a dig at him. It's just that just tracing his ideological roots. In order for us to understand his ideological roots, we can't travel straight to Kemet. We had to first make our way through Europe. That's what we got to do. We got to, and actually, that's going to be our stopping point. You know what I'm saying? Is the European roots that his I guess ideological forefathers and foremothers would have drawn from. That's just a fact. I mean, that's not opinion. We've seen the breadcrumbs now. You know what I mean?
Yep. And again, shout out to Urban Apologetics, Restoring Black Dignity with the Gospel, Eric Mason, with our good friend Adam Coleman being in this book. But we're quoting actually Dr. Vince Bantu here in his chapter, Kemecticism and the Gospel. He says, Not only are many of the alleged copies between the Bizrock gospel and Kemetic religion unsubstantiated fabrications, but this entire line of thought is a modern Western argumentation that is alien to the Kemetic tradition this religion's practitioners claim to uphold.
It's bars, bro. It's bars. And we've seen the receipts. So, I mean, and what I like about what you did was, I mean, for every one of those 1,000 slides that you had, you know, you got citations. Like, you're not just making this stuff up. If people want to go back and just kind of walk their way through this video, look up every citation, you know, the books are on the screen. You can see for yourself. You can see for yourself.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. And this was the short version, right? I mean, I know you got more.
This is the cliff notes of like 5 or 6 videos me and MJ have done.
Yeah, this is the abridged version.
But I got a bonus time.
Oh,
bonus
snap.
video.
Oh, snap.
We have yet another famous person within the Kemetic community who owes his very inception to Mr. Rafu Ahmed. So let me get this going here. Share my screen.
Yeah, by all means.
Here we go.
Whatever bars you got, bro, I'm here for all of it. I'm with all of it.
All right, here we go.
Oh no! Uh-oh.
Wow. You're ready to get married to you as a Christian, but it seems like our ancestors were Muslim. So I said, okay, because you got to remember, I had put all of that stuff from those institutions that I grew up out of my mind. I had just let it all go. And so I'm kind of, it was like I was restarting over again. And so I said, well, it seems like our ancestors were Muslims. So I said, maybe I need to be looking at Islam instead of this Christian thing. And then one thing happened. I was in a recording studio recording in Queens, in Jamaica, Queens. And at the time I was living way out in a place called Matawan in New Jersey. That's where the flight attendant and I were living. But I went to New York to record. And then I was in the studio. I was proselytizing Jesus, evangelizing Jesus to the producer. And the producer looked at me and he said, Shaka, he stopped the session. He said, Shaka, go over there and pick that book up on my fireplace. And I went over to the fireplace and I picked up a book called Metu Necha by Ra'un Nefer Amen, Shechem and Shechem. I don't know how many of you have heard of it.
Yes. I'm very familiar.
Right. So I picked it up, I read it, I looked at it, and I stopped the session. I said, yo, I got to go get this right now. I went, I bought the book, I bought 2 books. And these are the things, this is the moment, I guess you could say Shaka Amos was created. I bought 2 books. One book was Metu Necha, right on Jamaica Ave. One book was
the moment Shaka was
Wow.
born in the womb of Rosicrucianism.
Man, that is wild, Joe. That is wild. I mean, and here's the thing, like, seriously, like, again, these are the people who are constantly making arguments about, you know, Christianity being the white man's religion and blah, 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 blah. And here you have, you know, Shaka Atmos said that, like, his like epiphany, his life-changing, trajectory-changing moment came when he discovered the works of Ra'un Nefer Amen, who we now know was a Rosicrucian, which is based upon Europeanism and fabrications. Like, we know that now. Like, it's like that's done. Like, we know what's up. That's your guy. That's y'all man's. That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. I like Christianity aside. Let's just set aside Christianity for a second, right? Just looking at the facts, following the breadcrumbs. If you believe that Christianity should be rejected because it's, you know, European, so on and so forth, at this point, you have to do the same thing with this modern Kemecticism. You have to. This, what you call Kemecticism that you've been practicing thus far, it's got to go. If you're going to be consistent, it's got to go. Jeez, those bars, man. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. You know, you're going to get me in trouble, man. You know, he's going to be on my page now, you know, on my Facebook, heckling me once again. You know, it's maybe that's what you were intending. Maybe that was the goal. I don't know, but
just refute the sources. You know, it don't have to be personal. Just refute the sources in the video. Right. But to your point, you gotta be consistent. You know, you gotta be consistent. And what Alfredo has so eloquently demonstrated tonight was basically that this is the white man's religion, pretty much. And I think it was Carl Ellis in his book, Free at Last. He said, for something to be an ethnic religion, it got to satisfy a couple of criteria. The first criteria that it has to satisfy is a religion must arise out of the historical experience of a people and take on that people's cultural identity. Second, the assumptions involved in the religion or worldview must be taken as basic commitments of the majority of that people. And it must be so interwoven into the cultural fabric that it's part of the worldview without conscious acceptance of it. So on either one of those criteria, this is not what the Kemetics believe. They didn't hold to this stuff. I mean, it's been demonstrated. This is, and let me just say this. This is not if you understand what the Greeks did when they conquered a people, this is not surprising. It was a process called Hellenization. Now, what did the Greeks Hellenize Israel? All hell broke loose several times.
Yeah, that's fact. Yeah,
all hell broke loose several times. They didn't roll over, like I don't know who, but all hell broke loose several times. They wouldn't even allow certain faces to be on their money. And I think even the Roman Empire made certain exceptions just to keep the peace. Just to keep the peace.
Yeah, yeah.
And
man, it's bad. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
What me and MJ have said in these videos is that what we shared today isn't a confirmation that Christianity is the right worldview and you should bow the knee and pledge your allegiance to Christ. That's not what any of this is about. What this is about is clearing the table of various reasons that people have for not being a Christian.
That's
or
good.
For leaving the church. As you said earlier, Adam, that people will leave because they think that they can go over here for an authentic African experience.
Right.
But what we've shown you today is that you have left the church and ran into the arms of fanciful Frenchmen and European cosplayers.
Right. Wow.
Like that's what you've ran into and embraced. And it's not totally your fault because you've had people teaching in legitimate schools, right? Dr. Leonard Jeffries was the head of Africana Studies in Hunter College, teaching about how melanin gave black people powers. He's teaching this in school in Hunter College.
Goodness gracious, bro.
Midtown Manhattan in the 80s.
Wow.
So, of course, people are going to, it's in, I paid for this. I got tuition. I went to the bursar's office. I paid good money, right?
Right. To be taught,
get this. So it gotta be true.
And I think with every generation, well, I'll put it this way: when you have more information, then I think you're more accountable. And the reality is, we have a lot of people in our community who are constantly making the case that our enslaved, African forefathers and foremothers were essentially, brainwashed and duped into a white man's religion, that they believe Christianity to be the white man's religion. But this just kind of taking that as even if that were the case, I mean, we're talking about people who were indeed enslaved and under duress, kind of forced into it. That's what they believe happened. Now, fast forward to today. I'm saying, if you believe that to be a sticking point against Christianity, like, what is your excuse now for taking in this fabricated European Kemecticism? What is your excuse? Because nobody's putting a gun to your head. Nobody's beating it into you. I'm saying, you're consuming it from YouTube. Just saying, you're getting it from, the sources that you're getting it from on the internet. So if you, at this point, if you see the evidence and you willingly move forward with this European westernized, whatever you want to call it, Rosicrucianism, Hermeticism that we know is fabricated and comes from documents that we can't trace, beyond or before the 2nd and 3rd century. If you're gonna hold to these things, what I'm saying, nobody's forcing you, fam. Like, to me, I can't imagine, like having to having to cope with that, and still you try to hold on to Kemecticism when you know it's a fraud. Like, at least with our African ancestors, I'm saying, if you want to take that route, at least they were beat into it and were under duress. What is your excuse? What is your excuse? Dr. Ben lied to you. Dr. Henry Clark lied to you. You know what? I'll put it this way. I'll take it off of them. I'm not going to say lie. They presented false information to you. They provided you with false information. I'm going to take their intentions out of it. They presented you false information. I'm saying they sold you a bill of goods, told you it was African when really it was European. Brian Nefer, Amen, same thing. He gave you Rosicrucianism, the Kente cloth. We know that. We have the receipts. You know, the people that are presented to you today, whether it be a Brother Jabari, whether it be Ashaka Atmos, these are their ideological descendants that trace back to, again, these European ideas. All of it is just a house of cards that now we see as falling down. What are you going to do about it? I've been watching the chat. Like, I know there's some people who showed up in here and really been trying to ride with Kemet. I've been watching the chat. So my question to you, I'm hoping you're still watching. What are you going to do about it? And I'm not saying that to be flippant. I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm really wanting to challenge y'all. You know what I'm saying? Like, seriously, this is not a diss session against Kemet. This is not a diss session against any of the individuals that we name. We just following the evidence where it leads. And to me, the best way to honor our heritage is to honor it in truth, not to gloss it over with Europeanism from like the Middle Ages. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. That's you can't honor Africa like that. That's crazy, man. So, hey, man, seriously, again, this is the abridged version. So I want to encourage everybody to go on BK Apologist channel, go on MJ Jackson's channel, and see the full version. You know what I'm saying? If you think this was bad, then you got to check out the full version, man. Seriously. So, man, and any final thoughts? Anything you guys want to share? I mean, every 5 seconds, BK Apologist has another dagger. So I don't know what to do. I don't know whether to shut down the live or let him. I don't know what he's going to do right now. He's unpredictable. I don't know what's happening.
It's funny.
You know what I mean?
There's a term. Actually, MJ brought it up, and it comes from one of the books that I did cite, and it's a term called therapeutic mythology.
Interesting.
And like, it is important to empower Black and brown people, but empower them in truth.
Sure.
You know,
absolutely.
The Dr. Bens, the Dr. Henry Clarks, the Ray Hagans, I'm sure that they really believe that what they teach is going to inspire Black excellence. But you can't inspire Black excellence on faulty premises.
That's good.
That you're massaging people's bruised egos with lies and misinformation. And I think it comes from a pure heart. I don't think these people are being malicious or evil. I think they felt like, I need to use these things to uplift my people. But that's such an insult against Black people and the actual history of Black and brown people that is rich with amazing people and events that we could draw from to empower by. We don't have to conjure up fanciful Frenchman fictional novels. We don't have to do that. We have enough amazing Blackness to empower. Like, there's no need for this. There never was.
You know what I'm gonna say? Like, this might be a new T-shirt. Black history don't need help. It can stand. It can stand on its own. Black history don't need help. There's more than enough to be proud about. There's more than enough to value from our Black heritage, however you want to phrase that. You know what I'm saying? It matter. I'm just talking about stuff that's even. I'm talking about as a Christian. I'm saying there's much that I value about my Black heritage that aligns with the gospel. You know what I'm saying? And I can even go further than that. But the bottom line is Black history don't need help, man. It doesn't. I was just on let's see, Vocab Malone, shout out to him. He was on Sonata the other day, and I was in the chat. I think he was going to debating Chris Harris, and I was going back and forth with Brother Jabari. And Jabari said something to the effect of, it's like condescending for Vocab as a white man to be telling us, Black folks, about our history. And I just think that's hilarious to me, you know what I'm saying, in light of what we just saw, because essentially that's what his whole line of ideological forefathers has been doing this whole time, whether it be Rod Nefra Men, Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark. Wow. You know what I'm saying? They allowed Churchward and Albert Churchward and Gerald Massey and the other gentleman that you named, I don't know, I can't think of it right
Higgins.
now. Huh? Higgins. There you go. They allowed them to tell us our history and was proud about it. and proclaimed it proudly. I mean, okay, well, if he's gonna be consistent, you should feel some kind of way about that. Oh man, I'm stirred up now, man. I don't even know what to do, bro. I don't even know what to do with myself right now, man.
The fact of the matter is, we're talking about Christianity, and there is a deep hatred for Christianity. And you know what? The Bible explains it pretty well.
Yeah,
people run from the light, and they run to darkness. Christianity it's like Paul Mooney said one time. He said his grandma said, "Ain't nothing like that old broom that get the dust the best." No broom sweep like that. The Christian worldview sheds light on so many different areas, and it exposes it convicts. And people would rather embrace a lie than embrace the truth that God exists, that he has spoken, that he's personal, and that he has revealed himself expressly in the person of Jesus Christ. And you only got two options.
Yeah. I mean, that's profound. And actually, that brings us around, I think, full circle. We'll go ahead and end it out here. But hey, listen, man, it's Black History Month. I love Black history as much as anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, literally, I'm not making this up. Like, all I do every day, all day, if I'm not changing diapers here at the crib or at my 9 to 5, I'm studying apologetics and Black history. That's what I do. I'm saying that's literally all I do. You know what I mean? With that being said, as much as I love it, it can't save you, fam. Your heritage can't save you, regardless of what background you come from. It's a fact. One of these days, you don't listen to Adam Coleman. I'm just telling you, one of these days, you're going to stand before God. And all the Rosicrucianism in the world not going to help you. Hermes not going to be of no help to you at that point. Or whatever authentic practice you have from Kemet is not going to be any help to you. I propose to you the gospel. I'm saying I propose to you that the identity itch that you're trying to resolve, I'm saying that you're really thirsting for, ultimately it can only be resolved by the antidote that the gospel provides. You know what I'm saying, in so much as the gospel restores us to relationship with the Father through Christ. I'm saying we're then connected with who we really were intended to be. And those roots run far deeper than Kemet. They run far deeper than Europe or any other ethnic, claim that we can make. We got to run straight back to the cross and back to the Creator. We were made in the image of God, and we are the best of who we were created to be when we submit ourselves to Him. I'm saying, repent and believe the gospel, y'all. At the end of the day, that's why we're here. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, man, y'all want to tell people what y'all got coming up, and then we'll get up out of here.
I don't know what I got coming. I'm sure I'm going to have something with MJ next week. We're going to continue exacting violence.
Well, whatever it is, I'm sure it will involve multiple slides. That we do know.
This is true. This is true. This is very true.
Right. Yeah. What you got, MJ? What you got coming up, man?
Well, I once again, it's like my buddy here come. It's like he'll drive by the house, beep the horn, and I just hop in the car with him and go.
Ready to ride
with books hanging out the window, like
kind of like old boy on Boys in the Hood when he hopped in that red BMW. I got a few things I'm working on my channel. It won't be out till later on this month. I'm working on some debate reviews from our other brother of a different hue, Vocab Malone. He's been enacting violence since Christmas. So I will be doing a couple of debate reviews, and we'll see what happens from there.
Okay, dope. Just real quick, we do have a question. I am going to take this one because it gives me another opportunity to direct people back to BK. So, gentleman asks, where can I find the text that BK was reading about the Rosicrucians? I need to know. I need to show that to some folks. Just shout out your channel one more time, man, and then let people know where they can.
Yeah, I mean, just go on YouTube and just look for BK, space apologist, and you'll see all these videos that have this information.
Cool. All right, got you.
Now, I would just point out that Walter Martin has pretty good documentation on Rosicrucianism as well in his book Kingdom of the Cults. So you can also grab that book in the meantime while you on your journey.
Got you. You know, I'm tempted to answer some of these questions that's coming in, but I'm gonna I'm gonna camp out here. I really want to, you know, but all right, I'm gonna just say this. All right, I'm gonna leave it alone. I can't even help it. Was it Kane 7D Productions says everybody thinks what they believe is the truth, and really nobody knows anything. So you know,
but you know that, don't you?
You know that.
There we go.
That, huh?
Is that rover tactic? You're saying, but how do you know that? How do you know that nobody knows anything? You know, but aside from that, I would encourage you, because I don't recognize the name, so I would encourage you to check out other videos that we have here at True ID Apologetics. The reality is, I do believe that there are good reasons to affirm that Christianity is true, and I, constantly covering them on my channel. So it's not just people pulling something out of their behind, but we have rational justification for what it is that we affirm on this channel. So, check out some more stuff on this channel. With that said, I just want to say I love y'all. Thank you to the mods in the chat. Y'all holding it down. Thank you for everybody who, gave super chats and all that kind of stuff.
Thank you, Adam, for having us, man. Appreciate it.
Man, y'all already know what it is, man. We talk about this stuff all the time on the phone, man. So, it was a pleasure to have y'all. And, we're definitely going to do this again, man. So y'all know what it is, man. Love God, love people. Take care of the things that God blesses you with. Peace.